everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today on Behind the Scenes. I'm just so beyond excited to have Christina here with us today. She is a personal branding coach, marketing strategist, speaker, and author, and she is the founder of Mom Meets Life, which I love the name of your business. Absolutely love it. And she specializes in helping impact-driven women build and amplify their personal brand to transform into industry authorities with in-demand brands. Christina, thank you so much for joining us today. And I
Thank you for
will
having me.
let you introduce yourself to the audience and kind of share what made you start Mom Meets Life.
Yeah, it's a long story.
That's okay. That's why I always
We're
ask
gonna
it
condense
first.
it for the sake of time. Hi everybody. I mean, she introduced what I do, but who I am, first and foremost, I'm a mother and I'm a wife. And I quickly learned when it comes to the corporate world, that didn't always mix, and
Yep.
it was important for me to create flexibility, financial security, and freedom for not only my life, but I realized during the pandemic, many other women were in the same boat as me. Whether it's because they were a mother or just because they got displaced because of COVID. And really, what was the life shift for me? I already kind of segue into it is I did not, motherhood was not exactly in my plan. I knew it was something I had to talk about because my husband really wanted to be a father, but I was like, okay, they called me Chrissy with the checklist. I had all these bullet points. I have to do this, this before that even came to play.
Yep.
And so found out I was pregnant and I'm like, okay, so we're really going to do this now. And thinking, Wonder Woman's my favorite girl, and I'm like, okay, I can do everything. I'm gonna be like Diana. And then I learned quickly that was not the case. You can do everything, but maybe not always at the same time. So everything was going great with the pregnancy. I had all my ducks in a row and I'm just waiting for baby boy to come. And then he was late, like his mama. And I went to go get my stress test because they're like, okay, let's set up the induction day. Ironically, they wanted to induce me on Labor Day. And so they're like, well, we can't find his heartbeat. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm sitting there choking now on the animal crackers that they fed me. And I'm like, I can feel him moving. They're like, nope, that's just amniotic fluid, reflexes. We can't find a heartbeat. And so my heartbeat then stopped too. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Next thing you know, they're putting this oxygen mask on me. They're rushing me in an ambulance. And I just texted my husband saying, oh, he's coming. Because I didn't want to tell him. I'm like, oh my God, I don't, we don't have a son. And so got to the hospital. They found his heartbeat. Like, okay, it's frail, but he's there. I'm like, okay, thank God for that. But
Yeah.
it was just 20 hours of monitoring. And you're just sitting there watching the screen, going up and down these little blips. And then next thing you know, he flatlined again.
No. Oh my God.
And all I remember at this point is seeing the emergency staff rushing in. They shoved my husband out the way, whisking us to a cold room with a blue sheet over my head. And I don't remember much after that.
Yeah.
The next thing I remember is my husband like looking at me and I'm like, is he here? By the grace of God, he's alive. He's my Tasmanian toddler, I call him now, burst of life for someone who almost didn't make it, and that was just kind of my reality check how fragile life is.
Right.
And 2 weeks after that, I was told I have to return back to work full time. Whole WTF moment, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And pretty much was told if I didn't return back, I didn't have a job. So, once again, I'm sitting there feeling like, now what do I do? I just wasn't willing to have my husband bear that financial responsibility alone. We got a brand new baby. And this is right before COVID had hit. So, I went back to work and, I was still able to work remotely, thankfully, but when you're working, you're working. So, I had to sit there while my mom's getting, these amazing experiences and first time things was my experiences with my baby, and I'm working, and so that was really my wake up call that I had to take back control of my life. I kind of say reclaim your reign. I wasn't in control of my life. I was being pushed, directed, life circumstances externally were controlling me versus me being in that driver's seat. And I was determined to take that back. So Mom Meets Life is not just for mompreneurs. It's really a walking autobiography of me as a mother trying to take back control of my life and help others do the same.
I love that. And I know a lot of our audience shares that, not the same story, but shares same sentiments. Like, you're gonna make me choke up too. Cause like I didn't get those moments with my first daughter. Like, it's so different now with Lila that I get to be a part of those moments, where she was in full-time daycare, like you feel bad because you don't get that time back, and you don't feel in control, and it sucks as
It does.
parents
You're
what
gonna make
they
me
do
tear
to
up.
you. I know, I'm sorry, like I'm
This
just
is
emotional today.
me
But
too.
it just sucks when how they treat us, because I was told, you get 6 weeks when you were promised 12, which was a lot compared to what you're saying in your story. Or that they weren't going to give me my job back, and all of this. No, they knowingly hired me when I was pregnant. Like, I told them, I didn't have to disclose, like, hey, I'm pregnant and I'm
Right.
going on maternity leave 3 months after start date, like,
Mhm.
so it's just crazy what they think is
They shouldn't
acceptable.
have to choose. And I think especially in the United States, we're so behind in that. You hear overseas, they get a year paid at that,
Yeah,
and we shouldn't be in a position where we have to choose between our families and our career.
right. It's not like, it's time to put some humanity back into the workforce, because I'm a firm believer in, you don't need a 40-hour work week at all.
Hmm.
And people would be way more efficient, happy, if they didn't have a 40-hour work week, because it's such an outdated concept
I
at this
agree.
point for a lot of industries. So what kind of got you in? I know Mom Meets Life is like your autobiography, but you specifically specialize in the personal brand aspect. So kind of what made you choose that? Because I know, so Christina and I live actually very close to each other and got to meet each other in person, before we even connected, on a connection call, which was really fun. I love that story, because I was like, I've never met someone in person before I got to hop on a
Me
Zoom
either.
call. So she lives in near me, and I know what she does for full-time work, and it's it's similar but different than personal branding. So kind of what made you choose that path?
Well, there's several reasons. So I've been in marketing and branding for well over a decade. I have about 10 years worth of agency experience, and that really gave me experience really rotating around different areas of business operations. I've worked with
Yeah.
direct response writing, email marketing, personal branding, business branding, because there's a difference.
Yep.
I had done email marketing, funnels, PR. So when you are in these agencies, you really do get to be hands-on with all of those things, from front end to back end. And, I first started off when I first started my business teaching Instagram because it was easy for me. I'm like, okay, it's social media.
Yep.
COVID did hit, so everybody's on it. This is a great entry ticket. And really, I was selling myself short. I
Mm,
just figured, okay, that's the easy route. I can kind of get my feet wet in there, but not take that full deep dive into really doing what it is I wanted to do.
yep.
But I got frustrated because I saw so many people I was talking to getting irritated over everyone's doing the hot bop drop dancing around because reels are coming out, and they just felt like they were replicating someone that wasn't them. And I understand it because I
Yeah.
did it. They were getting irritated because these algorithms, when it first started, wasn't either showing their content as much as the next, feeling like they have to wait for the next trending audio to get out there. And I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I was channel action Instagram news, constantly trying to watch what, we all know who he is, on Instagram saying what's coming out next and reporting that. I'm like, so
Yeah.
I shut everything down. And I'll be honest, I didn't really make any money that first year. I was trying to too busy help everybody because it was COVID. So of course, me, the new mom, feeling bad for everybody, thinking, hey, let me help. I don't regret that. I
Yeah.
got to meet some of the most amazing people through that work, but it also helped me discover who it is I was and really what I was called to do. I was bullied for
Yep.
most of my life, being the Black girl who grew up in a very rural community where I was the only ink drop there. Those ripple effects came back to me, and especially on social, everyone's trying to tell you to be, look, sound like somebody else. And so,
Oh yeah.
really, that's when I went back in my roots. I shut everything down in that December. I'm like, let me just do the inner work. The inner work that I preach to
True.
my clients you need to do. And I realized I wanted to help people feel okay being themselves
Yeah.
while they promote their business. I knew how to help them monetize whatever it is they wanted to do. But
Yep.
the important part was making sure that they show up exactly as they are, no matter what everyone's going to say. Because we're always sitting there stuck, looking at this. Did I get a like? How many views did I get? Am I
Yep.
viral?
Yep.
And the problem was they were putting their own validation in other people's hands versus them being in control of their own value and saying, I'm here to serve you, take it or leave it, and be okay with that at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Separating what it is they do from I guess you could say, the valuation other people put in their head.
Right. And you kind of mentioned like helping them be themselves and be original to themselves. And I think it's hard for some people. I know I've struggled with it because I was very similar to you, or I am very similar to you with like, I had my checklist. My checklist did not go according to plan because my daughter thought it was unexpected. I did not have on my checklist to go through domestic violence and to do
Right.
this. Like, but I've always been mission driven, or like, what's the next thing in life? So then, like, how do you pause and say, like, who am I? Because I've always just been like, I'm the hockey player. I'm the straight A
Yep.
student. I'm the mom. I'm this. Like, how do we dive deeper into who we are to show up in those personal brands?
And I think that's the important part. Everyone's trying to kind of put people in a box. And I know you'll
Yeah.
hear the riches are in the niches, and you need to niche down to scale up. And for some, you do.
Yeah.
I think it's a personal choice. I chose personal branding because there's a lot of things I like to do. I like to make cake sickles. I like to pretend I'm, on Food Network in my kitchen.
I
I
love
crochet.
that.
I know, like I said, all those other aspects of marketing and things. So all of those things make up me.
Right.
And I got tired, especially someone, again, like I said, who I've dealt with racism. So, of course, there's stereotypes that come with that. I got tired of being put in this box. There's another
Yeah.
layer to my story where I've dealt with colorism, where it's like, okay, because you're dark skinned, you're not as
Mhm.
pretty as the others, and such like that. And it kind of goes back to slavery, which is a whole nother history question for a lesson for another day. But I just got tired of feeling like I never fit in somewhere. I was either too much for this group or not enough for another. And I just said,
Yeah.
bump that. I didn't
Yeah.
say bump that. Y'all know what I said, but we got little kids here, so we
It's
mamas.
okay.
All
We swear on my channel. We swear
right. Well, y'all
on the
know the way I'm
swears.
thinking. I'm still gonna be good today. But the point of the matter is, owning who it is you are at the end of the day
Mhm.
and making that your own lane.
Yeah.
And that's what I teach my clients, is how to create your own space where you no longer are you competing at someone, you actually can collaborate with them. I've
Oh
had
yeah.
plenty of friends who were in the same, excuse me, same industry or similar, but we have worked beautifully together because we don't view each other as, neck and neck. There's that thing with women, like we've always been put on this platform where we're benched against each other, and that's got to
Yeah.
stop.
Yep. They were.
And I think a lot of times it's just there's this instant gratification online because you get this like and you get someone saying, yes, sure. But what about those days when it's crickets? Can you still stay rooted in your purpose and know that your vision is yours and yours alone, not to explain to anybody, and keep traversing that path if people aren't clicking those likes?
Right. And because you're not going to see the traction if you're trying to be someone else. I just got off a call or a little bit ago where I had a client who it was like shiny object syndrome all the time. She tried to mimic everyone else's business and then have me implement things. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
but what do you want to do? Like, what makes you happy? Because you're not going to differentiate yourself if you're doing the same thing, this and literally using their templates. Like
Yep.
templates are great. I love giving away templates. I love selling templates. Like I love them, but you have to make them your own. It's a
Yes.
starting point. You can't just copy and paste it.
It's a framework. And
Yeah.
the important part, because everyone kind of wants that speed and ease, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to save time. I am a huge fan of working smarter, not harder, but it
Yeah.
still needs to be in your voice. When you are putting your brand out there, they should recognize you. If you put
Yeah.
McDonald's up there, it's the golden arch. If you hear a book, you understand who that author is out the gate. If you see a certain color like Tiffany's, it's Tiffany. So there needs to be a recognizable mark that's you. And so you can take someone's template to save you time, but if you're not putting your own imprint with it, it ain't you. And people aren't going to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to like it it's hard nowadays too, because like you said, everyone's on their phone and like, so like, how do I do the next trend? Or,
Mhm.
what can I do to get those likes? But even those people that I see as influencers, the ones that are great and the ones that stick out, they are consistent. They have a routine, like Elise Myers. She's like a great example of like an Instagram person that I really like, because she showed up, same format, same type, but she makes it her own and is authentic. But it's similar, like you're gonna see a white t-shirt, similar background, same hairstyle, like that's the consistency, and it's her brand. It's like you have to make it your own. And
You do.
yeah.
And there's so many ways you can do that, whether, I mean, I had just said queen. It was a statement of endearment for me, reminding people of their worth. I always say, you have a crown when you're a queen. And so if you put your head down, it's falling off. So that was my way of passing positivity to other women.
Right.
And I just didn't realize after a while, everyone's like, oh, hey, queen. And like people I didn't even know. But they kept seeing that repetition. It was just something I said, and it caught on because, for me, you're going to catch me in 18 million different hairdos. So that wasn't my form of consistency. But, you can pick and choose what it is. It's how you address your audience. It may be a certain way that you speak. It could be your tone. It could be the time of day. Maybe you're like your favorite TV show on a Tuesday, 12 o'clock every day Eastern, You get to choose that. But like you said, making sure that you do show up and consistently be there for who it is you're called to serve.
Yeah, exactly. You have to find that piece. So for anyone who's watching and then maybe they're starting out and they're new to their entrepreneurial journey, like what are some questions they can ask or exercises they could simply do to start picking out those pieces? Because I feel like I really struggle with branding. I mean, I'm getting better this year and I had a lot of time to like think and sit about it. But when I first started, I never prioritized that. And I feel like that was a mistake I made at the beginning of my business, because I was like, just get it out there. It doesn't matter how, whatever, like get the offer out there. My service will speak for itself. But then as I built it, my brand, like my branding photographer stylist was like, you kind of show up like you're in high school. You look like you're in high school.
I was all that too.
I was like, that's not what I wanted to. I don't want to look like that. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be seen as a kid, So like, how do we start thinking of our brand from the beginning?
Well, your brand is your living, breathing entity. It is what's going to keep going on long after you're even here. You first need to decide, do you want to be a business brand or a personal brand? A business brand, you are behind a name.
Yeah.
If you were a personal brand, which is what I personally prefer, just because we've seen how many businesses have closed in these past few years. A ton. But when you are a personal brand, you're putting yourself forward. It's who you are, what you believe in, your values, your experiences, your story. It's a culmination of all of these things. And people buy from people. So if you're in a position where then you got to pivot because maybe your industry now has fallen, due to economic downturn or whatever that is, it gives you the ability to keep creating without having to re-explain who you are, how do you serve. They will care about you as an entity and just want to get what it is you're part of. You brought them on this journey with you. I think that is really the key to sustainability in this new age. My personal opinion, I mean, I hid behind it. I was just mom meets life and I stayed behind it. But now I had to learn, well, when people start telling my story, you're like, okay, so what did you do again? And they remembered it because of my story, create that emotional attachment. But I always tell people, do that inner work before you do the outers. I know you want to get straight to the money. We all need our coins, but what happens is then you get out there and you're selling, and it's not making you money because you don't know who you're talking to and you don't know who you are.
Yeah.
But you're like, I got this pretty Instagram feed. That's lovely, but those cute Canva templates you use doesn't mean they're gonna be profitable if there's not a message behind it. So you need to know, what is your vision? That is your North Star, your compass. Where is this going? It's also what's going to keep you up. It's what's going to help keep you disciplined when the motivation runs out.
Yeah. And it does run out.
You need to know what is the mark on this world you are trying to make. And then your mission is how you do that each and every day. What are those consistent daily actions you're taking to accomplish that big picture vision? Then you need to know who you're calling to serve. Again, when you're personal brand, you can be the niche. So it doesn't mean it has to be just service providers, mompreneurs. It could be to say, what problem do you solve? A lot of times people's marketing breaks down because they're not articulating what it is they do and how they serve. We're like, okay, yeah, we know you're this person, but how is that going to help me?
Right.
I help people become an authority online. It doesn't mean just social media.
Yes.
I
There's a
help
lot of
them
ways to build that authority.
exactly. I help them expand their brand beyond that because if you're like me, I can tell you personally, social media is a slow growth for me because I don't want to be on it every single day. I want to be a mom and I want to be a wife. I
Mm.
like leveraging media because it gives me the ability to expand my reach when I don't have to be again glued to this.
Yeah.
That's just me, and I help people do that, expand beyond trying to just be Instagram, TikTok famous and such as that.
Yeah.
So those are the three things that I say are the three core pillars. And then the most important one is, and I'm going to always preach this, know your values in your story.
That is
We
a big one. Values will
huge one.
differentiate.
And it's hard for people to want to embrace that one because we live in a society where everyone's getting canceled for breathing. You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Be okay with that. If you lose followers, fine. These are not your people. You're here to serve the ones that you're called to serve and that understand and buy into your message. That's who you're here for. They're out there. You may have to dig a little deeper to find them, but if you keep trying to just go for commercial appeal, I promise you internally you're going to combust. But
Yeah.
also, you're not going to allow your true values to show forward, and it will come across as inauthentic because people are more savvy now. They
Yeah.
sense when you're just there for the attention and the glam with it, with not for the intention. Be
Yeah.
intentional with what it is you do.
And that's where the inner work comes back in too, is because I feel like a lot of people are afraid to be themselves or they're not comfortable being themselves.
Yep.
So you have to do that inner work to stand in your truth and be open with it. Cause that's something I struggle with too. And I hid behind my brand for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was different though, because I didn't want to put my name and self out there because of the domestic violence, the
Yep.
potential repercussions. Elf Operations became the name that I took on to protect myself, protect my daughter, be able to share and open up to the world because I was getting advice from gurus and stuff. Because you just put a post on out yesterday that was like, what is bad advice that you've gotten? And it was always like, go live, make your, like, everyone was like, make your profiles public. I'm like, I can't make my profiles public. It
Mm-hmm.
is not safe for me to do that. Like, so yes, I had to do more work to build up my business profiles, but you had to like, and I say this because if anyone's watching and they're on my channel a lot, I do attract and talk to a lot of women who are going through this and have gone through it
Yes,
and they're not comfortable. So use that, like, then that makes it easier. Your decision is you are that brand. Use
that's
your
exactly
brand
right.
to keep you safe, and not
You're
have to
right.
put
And
yourself
I
out there.
especially think in this like influencer era, and again, I full time, I work for digital marketing agency, it's an e-commerce background. So we get influencer, it helps push products every day.
Yep.
And there's a right and purpose for it, so I will never knock that world. But the problem with, I think a lot of entrepreneurs understand, especially in personal branding, because you're trying to build
Mm-hmm.
your influence, doesn't necessarily mean you have to go be an influencer. And I know that's
Right.
kind of gets, there's a lot of argument and with many other gurus in my field about that because people have gotten this idea like Kim Kardashian. She puts everything as content in her life, every aspect of it. That works for her. If she's fine with that, great. If you're fine with that, great. But some
Mhm.
of us are not. Like,
Yeah.
I remember I put a few videos on TikTok. I was like, let me figure what's going on there. And, I'm in an interracial relationship. My husband's white. And like, woo, the comments we had, I was like, oh, wait, is this MySpace? Like, MySpace is back. People were bold when it was MySpace, showing my age. But I wasn't ready for that because Instagram, they either keep swiping or they just don't do nothing at all. Where
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, they are loud, proud, and they will tell you how they feel. And I was like, all right, I have a problem with this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it brought back demons and triggers that I said I have worked hard, long to bury personally. And I'm like, nope. So like I'm in my brand, I don't make an effort to hide my son or my husband, but they're not the focal point in that aspect
Right.
because I don't want them to trip a trigger that maybe have to make me act out of character because I'm a very protective mom. I'm an older sister. I'm a mama,
Yeah.
so it's just I'm very protective of those who I love dear. And so the important part is not every part of your story has to be online and out there. You get to choose what those boundaries are. It's one of the things with my clients we establish out the gate. So before you start going out there posting who you are, what you do, let's talk about what you don't want online.
Yeah.
Because the important part is it doesn't make you inauthentic because you're not telling it. Because if you're not comfortable with that, people are going to read that uncomfortable and think, okay, she's lying about something. There's something not right there. And they're going to feel that and feel that's inauthentic to them and not trust you.
Mm-hmm.
If people don't trust you, they're not going to purchase from you. So you get to protect
Oh,
your bubble. Unless you want to celebritize yourself in that manner, don't do it.
exactly. Exactly. You don't have to. Like, and I'm very not cautious. I am cautious of what I share with the girls, but it is a very much a focal point because in my branding now, it's, if I didn't go live with Lila, I wouldn't go live at all. Like I'm not gonna let that
Mhm.
stop me. So it's like I show up with the girls because I also want other moms to see like you don't have to be up and on camera perfect and pretty and like I was doing lives with Lila puking on me at the beginning of the year, like now
Right, right.
I have the ability to record these. Thank God that's why I'm starting to do them on YouTube is I can record them. And my husband's home on Fridays, so I record a lot on Fridays now. But
Yeah.
like, I just want women to know, like, you can show up. You don't have to let your kids be the thing that sets you back because that's gonna like you're gonna resent them. And
Mhm.
I've talked to a lot of moms that they're like, I can't do this because of my kids. I'm all about how can we find a way to do it with your kids? Because
Exactly.
even personal things like they're like, I can't do this, I can't travel. Like I have friends that say that all the time because they're like, you had your kids so young, you're like your life's over. And I'm like, no, it's not. I get to do all this with my kids. Like I am flexible. Like I don't care. I'll bring them places because
Right.
I'm not going to shield them. I mean, I'll
Mm-mm.
shield them from stuff, but like, why do I need to shield them from going to a restaurant or taking them on a plane? Like, I'm not going to do that. That's not my brand. And so
I'm
I
same,
love what you're
I mean,
saying here.
I'm the same person, I mean, for me, my son is what reawakened me to like, okay, Chris. So
Mhm.
that's kind of just operating a status quo, and so he's
Yeah.
my daily challenge because he's a tough one. He's a live wire, a little spark plug, but like everything I'm doing is for him, and I want one day to look back like, hey, look who all my mom was fighting for me, and so
Yeah.
you're exactly right. It's not that your life is over, but it has changed, and certain priorities have changed. For me, I want to travel the world with him. I want him to see different things I couldn't see, but
Yeah.
it's a choice. Like you said, you can either resent it, or let it what it drives you.
Right.
Exactly. There's things. I mean, my son, I had an Instagram live probably about a month ago, and he was losing his mind on the live. And I'm like, well, this is it, y'all. I mean, it's not
Hmm.
all roses and sunshines behind here.
Right. Like clients of mine, you're gonna see my kids. If you don't like that, you're not a good fit. You're not my person. Like I get, and some people really respect that when I'm doing the lives with them. I've had moms comment like, "Oh my God, how are you doing this?" Like, and it
Mhm.
just goes to show when I'm working in your business, I can handle all of that because I'm used to juggling. That's actually something I'm going to be talking about more in my messaging and my branding is like all the professional jugglers out there. Like you're
Yes.
juggling momhood, you're juggling being a partner, but you don't have to sacrifice in those areas. So what are some of
No.
those things that you've learned in the past couple of years with your business that you found help with juggling everything?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Oh, so I was getting so caught up in the conversation. Yeah.
No,
So
no,
for
no.
me, I'm still work in progress in that. I will be completely candid. I would love to say that I have everything mapped out and I don't.
Yeah.
um, that is definitely something I am really fighting for now, which is why I made a pivot in my business this past quarter. I said, I understand the time constraints I do have. And these past few years, my family has been the one to sacrifice. My husband's seen the back of my laptop a lot more than my face half the time with things. I'm very grateful. He's supportive and saying, let's get our dreams, understands our purpose, what we do for our son. But I'm a wife. Same thing with my son, sacrifice that maternity leaves. I didn't want to get financially, but again, you can't get so caught up in building the life that you don't have it. And so
Exactly.
that is something I was like, this past few months, I'm like, my son's going to be in school like in a year or so. And I'm like, crap.
Mm-hmm.
something's got to give here, and I want to put more of an emphasis back with them. So, I've restructured my programs where I can still serve, do and fulfill my vision and my mission, but without having to continuously drop that ball. So, love the book, The One Thing, and it talks about these different balls of life and how some are rubber, some are glass. Your relationships, your health, wellness, all of those things are glass balls. If you drop them, they break. Work is a rubber ball. You can drop that and pick it up at any given time, but I didn't understand that, learning a work in progress with that. So that's my goal is to, and that's also why the beauty of systems, because systems help you protect that ball too. It helps you protect your glass balls.
It looks like the ball is in the air when it's not. Because I've had a lot of people, they were like, I didn't even notice you kind of like drew back over the summer because you've been so like on social and like on that. And I'm like, yeah, because I have an easy system. I have an assistant that helps me. Like, she's not to like, I mean, I guess pulling back the cord or the curtain, right. This is behind the scenes. And of course, like she's helping me engage. She's helping me like, but we've created a system and a process that makes it authentic and not spammy, and it's still in alignment. Like we've tested things out, and it's not ever going to be perfect the first time.
Right.
People need to remember that,
Absolutely. But for me, I have a village, my husband, my mom, she's here every 5 days a week helping me watch my son, and so I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful there's a lot of women I've talked to who are moms, doing what it is I aspire to, to even elevate to, and even in my brand that were like, hey, Chris, keep going,
Yeah.
But these are things that we're moving around in our lives so we can still do it, so I would say have a village behind you. And like you said, prioritize what's important to you.
Yeah. Because it doesn't stop. That was one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten. It doesn't stop when you hit, like, it's not going to change when you hit that 6-figure milestone. It's not going to change when you hit that. You're building habits. And if your habit is, I'm going to check emails and work at like dinner time, that's the habit you're building. And that's something I had to learn last year as well. Because like you said, the back of my laptop is what everyone saw, or I was grinding out with after the kids went to bed, and then I was waking up exhausted and like not able to be a present mom, even though I had that time because I was getting like 4 hours of sleep, kind of thing. So I really appreciate how you also talked about boundaries with your clients. So how are some of the ways that we can enforce those boundaries?
Write them down first and foremost, because when you write them down, and don't just write them down in one spot, have them in your phone, have them in the note section of your computer, have them on a sticky note, and you have to continue repeat that repetition. Write down what are your triggers to that. Because it's one thing to say, okay, I don't want to answer emails like you said at 5 o'clock at dinner. Guilty. But making sure, like, write down what triggers that and why. Understanding, for me, it was like, okay, fair. If I don't answer that, I'm going to either get behind, I'm going to lose the money, I'm going to get fired, I'm going to, be demoted, whatever, not get promoted. There's so many reasons why, and you need to cover what's triggering you to act that way. Have an accountability partner, and one that you're going to listen to. I know for me, I've realized some people go, she's intimidating. I'm like, wait, what? How? So I, at that time I hired a coach. I needed a coach to hold my butt to the fire, and say, look, Chris, and I have a few friends, very dear friends that they see it, Chris, you need to take a step back, and I actually cried to one of my friends. I was like, okay, I'm trying to accomplish all this. I said, but I feel like I'm just like buried, I'm trying to get ahead, but I said, but I feel like I've just taken on so much. And she was like, why don't you do this with your business? And she goes, you can still be able to get what you want done, but you don't have to do all these things. And I'm like, so the biggest part is write them down, keep them in an area, and then make a commitment. So I like to review at the end of the week. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? And consistently analyze, then how am I going to do better? Because it has to become a habit. Habit when it comes to repetition and honesty with yourself. So know the root of it, why you're doing it, and then keep checking having accountability, and then keep checking how much progress are you making? Are you continuing to regress, and why?
Yep. I think those are great points and great tips for anyone listening to write it down, make it everywhere. and because you do, it's like the same thing with goals. You know, you write them down because you want to stay focused on it. And if that's what you need to do is set better boundaries for yourself, you need to be constantly reminded of them. And I love that you brought up being honest with yourself, because sometimes we are not honest with ourselves. And I am guilty of that. Like I have done that before, but it's when you're honest with yourself and when you're uncomfortable with yourself, that's going to lead you to your next level of growth. So I think those are great points. And I want to also ask, since we kind of got away and on tangents of some other things, great topic, but leveraging our story a little bit more, since we did get away from the branding piece, I do want to make sure we talk about that. And because I know you also just wrote and shared your chapter. I actually interviewed someone earlier in the week who was part of the book as well. So I want to talk about
the small world.
I know. Well, yeah, I've had a couple people, so I'm excited. Like I told her, I was like, I can't wait to get my paper copy to read all the chapters that are in that book. But I love the title, Quiet and Badass, and I would love to hear about how you leverage your story in that book.
Yeah, so story is something we all have, but a story untold is no story at all. And that's the important part, is it doesn't become one until you put it out there, whether it's audibly, verbally, or in print. And so I have come to realize, a lot of times imposter syndrome creeps up. You're seeing all these amazing people out there, 15 million more followers than you, they've made this many more millions than you and such. And so I was feeling like that comparison. I just was like, well, who am I to say what happened, And so storytelling is 22 times more memorable. It actually activates a part of the brain that processes feelings and emotions versus logic and rational. So it takes people's guards down, but with story, it's also strategic. So when you're telling your story, it's not always just the me factor. It's about telling in a way where your audience can see themselves in your story. There's an arc to it. There's the beginning, there's the conflict, and then there's the resolution, but they have to see themselves as the hero within your story. And that's the big thing, what makes stories more potent and help you, I guess you could say, convert in your business, when you know how to tell them to move an audience. Right. Out here, we look at things with the them lens, I call it, what's in it for me. And so if they can't find what's in it for them through your story, they're gonna be a cool story, bro, but they're going to swipe. That's just the fact. That's the fact of the matter. But
I struggled with that. I struggled with that at the beginning. Yeah.
Because it's about you, but it's for your audience, and so the important part, what story was so impactful for me, was it opened doors where I feel personally my professional resume fell flat in comparison to others. It helped showcase my values, because people are like, okay, I can either relate to her, I can empathize, sympathize, whatever that is. I was able to book media features before I was even really out there as official LLC. I was able to get the book deal, and I never imagined that was like number 19, 20 years at the bottom of my goal list. I'm like, okay, I put it as that stretch goal, like, oh shit, I'm gonna be an author. I never thought that was happening in 2022. Yeah. I was like, wait a minute, what? And then when it came best-selling, I was like, what? Okay. And it still really hasn't sunk in yet, because this is only like 2 weeks old, so yeah. But I'm grateful for that, because there's somebody out there who needs to hear your story.
Yep.
My goal for my story, yes, it talks about what you would expect from, a Black woman. I have dealt with racism in my life. Yeah. I can't change that, and I used to not want to talk about it because I know sometimes it makes audiences uncomfortable.
Right.
And I did not want someone else to feel uncomfortable, because I was uncomfortable for a lot of my life. But I realized there's somewhere out there is a dark-skinned little girl who had, eczema all over her body, acne, felt like she wasn't fitting, her hair wasn't growing, and feeling like she didn't matter, feeling like she wasn't beautiful, feeling like, okay, if I can't be pretty, I'm going to be smart, bury myself in these books, and just try and make money with her head down as low as possible.
Yeah.
That was me. And not trying to blubber, but it's just, I felt I have a responsibility, because I know the dark places your head can go when you feel insecure about yourself.
Yeah.
And that's just something that I just felt, if my story can, and it doesn't have to be just because you're Black, it could be any person out there who just feels like they're a misfit, because I understand when it feels devalued, discredited, discounted, underestimated, all of those things, you know. And I think each of us, even as women, we are naturally conditioned to feel we have to be something that's different than what we came out with.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's I want, you know, bigger boobs, you know, I want the bigger butt. I want, you know, I gotta hide my C-section scar.
Yeah.
You know, my goodness, the cellulite's coming in, or, you know, I have eczema that I'm trying to put 15 layers of concealer on to hide so the world doesn't judge me. You know, and we women of color, social's hard for us because we do have to work harder for people to view us as credible. There's certain things we cannot do that others can, you know, and it's not a knock towards others. It's just the aspect of that is our reality in this aspect, and being okay with, you know what, I am a woman of color.
Yeah.
I am qualified. I can help you, but pay attention to what I can do versus what exactly I look like, you know? So that is why my story, I wanted to show perseverance, but also gratitude, because a lot of times we can allow our past to really keep us ball and chained instead of perpetuating our growth. So for me, I'm finally breaking free of those chains, you know, of shame I've had for that, or just insecurity. And I felt a responsibility to tell that story, especially being the fact that you know, with personal branding, you know, the girl who's been bullied is saying now be okay with yourself. That is inner work I had to do for myself before I was going to begin to even teach someone else.
Right. And you can let this, you know, this is something I've talked about in my story that I call to light with. There's statistics, and like it kind of goes along with, I love data. I talk about data a lot, but a number is a number. And if you want to interpret it negatively or positively, or let it be, but it doesn't have to define you either. You don't have, like, that was part of my story, was like, you don't have to be that statistic. You don't have to fall into that. And what are people going to say when they find out you did all of this in spite of? That's something I've been constantly telling myself. Like, you feel the weight of the world on you. Feel like we feel the weight of the world as women. We feel the weight of like our kids needing us, our husbands needing us, this, our business, work. But like, what's going to happen? How are you going to feel when you got your goals in spite of all of this, in spite of those hardships? And like, that's the thing to keep reminding. And I love your story, and that you shared it, and that you're such an inspiration. Just so many women, so many people in general, just because of your authenticity. And I know it was not an easy journey for you to get there either. Because it is a lot of inner work, and inner work fucking sucks. Like, it does. You have to face those demons, like you said, and face those triggers, and really uncomfortable.
And if you don't, especially being online, they're going to resurface at the worst possible time. I promise you that.
Oh yeah.
You know, and that's the thing, like, you have to do it. It's painful, it's hard, it can be embarrassing, you know, there's a lot of guilt that comes in there. But if you don't, you're never going to be free.
Yeah, you won't. And you're never gonna, and like, as a mom, you're never gonna be able to help your kids through that.
Nope.
If you only teach someone as far as you've gone yourself, like you said before. You know, you can't teach them or help them if you're still struggling with the same stuff.
Absolutely. And especially if you're in an industry where you're being a service to others, you have to be aware. Self-awareness is just so important, so that way you're not perpetuating your triggers on someone else.
Especially, like you said, in the service industry, because clients can trigger you. I've had that happen. I'm gonna do an episode on it, but I had a client trying to gaslight me, and it put me right back into years of abuse, being in that home of not feeling worthy enough, and just a total downward spiral. And there are people that you're going to interact with, especially in the online space, that can and will try to push your boundaries and take advantage of you. And it happens in corporate jobs, trying to do it all the time. So you need to stand in your truth and stand in your boundaries.
Absolutely.
I appreciate so much of that you've shared with us, and being so open about it. And I'm excited for your book. I know that the print copy is not out yet, but if you want to
it comes out, I believe, in November.
In November? Okay. So whenever you get that, we can add that into the show notes. If you're watching this as a replay, or later on, there will either be a link to the Kindle version or the paper copy in the show description, because we can always update that at a later point, once you have the paper copy. For those who love a hard copy, that's me.
Me
The
too.
Kindle version is
I need the
good. Like, you
pages.
can get the stories and start getting that impact. It's quiet and badass. And there also is links to connect with you down below in the show notes and the description. And you have a value add for our audience as well. Do you want to kind of go over that before we hop off?
Yes. So my value add is I will be, anyone who's listening in, if you click the link below, I will be giving exclusive access to my upcoming store called Empire on a Budget. This is my brand new store. It is coming out on the 17th officially, but you're going to get a promo code through my Queen Emma right now. And it's going to help you continue to build your business. I have over a decade of experience in marketing, business, and personal branding, as well as PR. And so I pretty much call it my Macy's backstage version of my brand.
I love
I have to
that.
thank my sister. I didn't know Macy's backstage existed till she told me. She's like, that's like, it's the affordable section, in a world of high ticket. I understand what it feels like to want to bootstrap your business because we're not trying to break our bank in the process. I get it. I've been you. I did it for 2 years. We would afford my first high ticket coach, and I don't regret it. So I will be dropping templates, workbooks, mini trainings that will be the center for you, so you can get your feet wet in different areas of your business without feeling like you have to risk it all. So I will be dropping that link and that code that'll be exclusively for your audience. And I thank you all for your support.
Take advantage of this, everyone. I love the name Empire on a Budget. It's exactly for all of us women who are building our empires, but still, financially savvy, because that is something that not enough people talk about, because you feel pressured to invest in your business all the time. But you shouldn't put your family's financial situation at risk just to grow your business all the time. You can still add value without doing that. So I love this. I'm fully supportive. And I will be gifting a bunch of trainings to her as well, because this is something is very closely aligned with my mission as well, to just help as many women as possible, have that experience, or that freedom and flexibility, like you mentioned, like regaining your control.
Reclaim your reign, queens.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I just see purple and gold whenever you say that, like a gold.
See, people would think that, and I actually hate purple. I'm not gonna lie. I'm more of the green. I love black. I love gold. And that's kind of like my chic and my theme. If you watch my stories, and it's because green for me is abundance, and it was kind of symbolize growth. I guess I didn't go for purple because not everyone is born royalty, we know, by blood. So green is you're really growing into that yourself.
See, you guys just got a crash course on just personal branding and the marketing and building.
There is color psychology, but that's a whole nother lesson.
That is. We will get into that another time. But thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for
having me. Appreciate so much.
And everyone, if you're listening, check out her shop, check out her resources, check out her Instagram. You will love her as much as I do. So thank you.